Hello there, Bridge and the Gap family. Welcome back. At the beginning of this week, I wasn't sure what we were going to talk about this week, and by the end of the week, there was so much to talk about. There's been shootings in our nation. There's been a lot of unrest. There's been budget talks here locally that gotten heated. There are just so much going on. There's law enforcement boards that they're trying to get approved. There's so much unrest, and we have to be focused on keeping the main thing, which is keeping our minds right and trying to think right. With all that in mind, we need to know what's going on. This week, we're going to talk about several things. First thing I want to talk about right now is what's going on in this nation as far as with guns. Okay? I think we have a mental illness problem. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's just me who believes that. We have a lot of people who are going through a lot of hard times. That's why it's very important for us to truly pray. There are a lot of people who, during the COVID shutdown, it became a meltdown in their lives. And they're really turning to some really heinous actions. There's a lot of time that our kids are being unchaperoned and they're playing a lot of crazy games and then going up and shooting up the place. And how are they get a hold of these weapons when they're not even old enough to drive? We have a lot of concerns. And again, we got to remember, a gun itself cannot hurt anybody. But in the hands of someone, there's a lot of damage. Weapons can be very useful in defense of your home, your property, your nation, your family, but it can be harmful if used improperly. Personally, I don't think we have a gun problem. I think we have a mental illness problem. I think we have a people problem. I think we have a sin problem, truthfully. But anyway, there are a lot of things that are on the table right now. And during political season, there's some of them making a political thing. We have to make the main thing, and that's people. We have to be very much attentive to the well-being of our kids, the next generation, our families. And by doing so, we have to address the problem. Again, like I said a while ago, a gun itself, a weapon itself, cannot do any harm. But in the hands of the wrong person, it becomes a weapon of mass destruction. This gentleman was actually, just before the shooting, I was watching some things on YouTube, and I decided to take a little clip. I want you to take a look at this. I think this would be very helpful. Okay?
That group, domestic violence, blacks, these minorities and that minority. What I want to know is, when are you all going to start standing up for the majority? And here's who the majority is. I'm the majority. I'm a law-abiding citizen who's never shot anybody, never committed a serious crime, never committed a felony. I've never done anything like that. But it seems like every time we have one of these shootings, nobody wants to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet. You want to put it at my feet. You want to turn around and restrict my right, constitutional right that's spelled out in black and white. You want to restrict my right to buy a firearm and protect myself from some of the very people you're talking about in here tonight. It's ridiculous. I don't think Rod Serling could come up with a better script. It does not make any sense. The law-abiding citizens of this community and many communities around this country, we're the first ones taxed and the last ones considered and the first ones punished when things like this happens, because our rights are the ones that are being taken away. That's the reason why I came down here today. Gun show or no gun show, NRA or no NRA. I'm here to stand up for the law-abiding citizens of this community, because I'm going to tell you that what's going to happen. You can take the guns away from us all you want to. You all write a law, I follow the law, I'll bring my guns down here, I'll turn them in. But here's what's going to happen. The Crips and the Bloods on the other side of town, they're not going to turn their guns in. They're going to hold on to them. And what's going to happen when you have to send the police down there to go take them? The police can barely enforce the law as it is. As what I see, we demonize the police, criminalize and vilify the police, and we make the criminals into victims. And we're talking about restricting guns? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that when the police department is already hamstrung? You're not going to be able to go down here and take these guns from these criminals. So the criminals are going to hold on to their guns. They're still going to have them. They're still going to break in my house, and they're still going to shoot me with them. And guess who's going to be the one that suffers? It's going to be me. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight, it is not going to happen without a fight. And when I say fight, I don't mean shots fired. I don't mean fist thrown. I mean, I'm going to come down here to this city council and raise hell just like these loonies from the left do until you listen to the majority of the people in this city. And I am the majority. The majority of the people in this city are law-abiding. And they follow the law. And they want their constitutional right to be able to bear arms. They want to be able to go to the gun show and buy a hunting rifle or a sport rifle. There are no military-grade weapons sold at the gun show. An AR-15 is not a military-grade weapon. Anybody that would go into combat with an AR-15 is a fool. It's a semi-automatic 22 rifle. You'd be killed in 15 minutes in combat with that thing. So we need to dispel all these myths, and we need to drop all this division that we got going on here. Because the bottom line is, when that Second Amendment was written, whether the framers liked it or not, they wrote it for everybody. And I am everybody. And the law-abiding citizens of this city are everybody. And we want our rights, and we want to keep our rights. And by God, we're going to keep them, come hell or high water.
This bridging the gap's a little bit different because there are real issues that we're facing, and I would be not a very smart person to ignore what I see. We're talking about cyberbullying and at the last bridging the gap, and this isn't a result of a lot of bullying in people's lives. The way that people handle situations are different. Some, when they're bullied, they go into a shell and you don't hear anything from them. Some, when they're bullied, they turn to God. And that could be great. That is great. That is very great when they turn fully to Him. But some turn to other entertainments to release that pain. I'm talking about violent video games, okay? I am a gamer, okay? I play NBA 2K, and I have played Battlefield, which is a military game, and I was in the Marine Corps. However, even with the military game, sometimes, especially for those who suffer from PTSD, it can make you get triggered, okay? My point is a lot of these games out here, like Grand Theft Auto, there's others, a whole lot of other ones, but there are kids that I know for a fact that are under the age of 12 playing these games. Now, what happens when all of this hate, all of this violence is released in the young mind? Well, I say it like this, there's a seed that is sown. Just like it is if that person chooses to do other things that are positive. Okay, yes, there are other positive things out here other than just living for God, but that's most important. I'm not going to change that stand. But when, let's say in dance, when a young person gets involved with dance or in sports, they devote themselves to that. Well, what about when they devote themselves to releasing their anger through video games? Or sometimes we don't even look at the other things like getting really secluded and quiet. We have to be very careful. We have to be very careful when we are dealing with our children and with people in general. When I say that, we have to let them know that they have an avenue to go to. They have someone to talk to, and not somebody that's going to judge them. It's unfortunate when these shootings happen, but it seems to always have like the same, at least what we were being told, it seems to always have like the same backstory. You know, young person picked on or lived in seclusion, playing violent video games. All the characteristics seems to be there. But yet there's less reaching. There's more shunning. There's more violent video games being allowed into households. as a younger man, I used to work at a video game store. I'm not going to name that store, just not going to name that store. But it is known nationwide. It's a big game store where you can get all kind of accessories and games, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things they did have us to do as a person working there is to warn the parents before they get these games. If this game was considered to be something above your kid's age level, we said, hey, you might not want to give little Johnny this game. But I can tell you, those parents that I told that to, the majority of them said, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. A lot of these things that we see, it seems like if you really go back to those gaming days, it goes right back to what they are playing out. They are playing out things in their minds. Okay? We have to be careful what we're allowing our kids to be a part of. How much time we're allowing them to spend away playing video games, you're not even noticing what they're playing. Okay? There's a lot of things on the table right now, especially when it comes to kids, and you wonder why. Because it's our future at stake. There's so many things going on right now, and one of the things about with the COVID lockdown is that parents got more involved in what their kids were learning. But another thing that happened is kids had more time to play these games. Not just kids. Because again, I played NBA 2K and I'm in my 40s. There are those that are, while they're locked down or in these houses or whatever, they're focusing on a lot of these games and a lot of these entertainments out here that's making them more and more angry. And again, they have nobody to talk to. Mental illness is real. And it could not only be dangerous, but deadly if we don't start reaching out, start being a help. You can go to any of these homeless shelters and you can see people who are hurting. And take it from me, if you know that person over a longer period of time, if they don't get it right or at least reach for help, they get worse. It's a very crucial time we're living in. Very crucial time. We got to pray more. Not just when things happen like COVID or the Ukraine or these shootings, but we need to pray more just all together because this world, there's so many things happening. But mental illness, we really need to take a look at that. We actually had Talana Watson speak on it at the last county council meeting we had on the last Bridging the Gap, but it's still so fresh of a topic that I want to go ahead and play that again.
All safe. So one of my main concerns is that of mental health. And I wanted to ask Mrs. Brewster the question, what avenues are set in place in which the citizens of Wycomico County can reach out to the health department to know that there is available those services pertaining to mental health? As I witnessed and as we all heard on the news this past weekend, what's happened in Buffalo, I don't want to think of something like that ever happening in Wycomico County. So, and I know those kinds of things are a result of having mental health issues. So those are things in addition to the nice roads, in addition to the spraying for mosquitoes. If we cannot be assured and have security in knowing that we will all be safe, I think that should be one of our priorities. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Again, as I said earlier, this is not going to be just our normal setup of the Bridging the Gap sessions. We're talking about mental illness and how it affects our schools and the unfortunate things that have happened in our nation. I'm here with Kimberly Groves, who, first of all, is a friend of mine for many years. We actually graduated. She's also running in the District 2 of Wycomico County for Board of Education. Kim, how you doing today?
I am fine this evening. How are you doing, Dave?
I am great. Kim, it's a lot different than it was when we were in school. seems the bullying styles have changed a lot. Back then, I'm not even going to lie, I actually was a victim being thrown in a trash can, and I thought that was devastating. Now, that's just small compared to what they're doing nowadays.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, to me, it's 24/7 relentless now. Social media has become the way of bullying, to the point that you hear stories in the news of kids being bullied to the point where they're told by their peers to commit suicide, and they are so depressed because they've been relentlessly bullied without any recourse. They go and do it.
And you know,
It's frightening.
it is, and actually, as you're saying that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I started thinking about as I said earlier, I am a gamer, and I remember a couple of years back, a certain young man was playing NBA 2K, and you know, somebody was really upset about the way a game went, and we call them internet thugs, those that probably are picked on in real life. They get on there and they intimidate others, and this young man got so upset. He decided, I just wish I was dead, and he left left what they call the party. Well, I kept sending him party invites, so he finally got into the party with me, and I said, "Are you okay?" He says, "Nobody loves me. I just wish I was dead." And you know, I got a chance to try to encourage that young man, and I heard back from him. I mean, it seemed like he was doing better. But even in video games, and that's what I was talking about with some of these more violent video games. As Kim and I have worked with, I've worked with her before with some of the disadvantaged kids. Some of them are homeless. Some now not are homeless anymore, but however still have that mentality. But I have one thing I have strongly discouraged with from our young people we worked with is playing like Grand Theft Auto. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we're like, there's a young man. We're not going to use any names on here, but Kim has been working with through what they call the Choices program here in White Comico, which is kind of like an alternative school. However, sometimes it's like a playground. And one thing, Kim, I want you to talk about is the fact of they were allowing them to play these video games in the classroom. Am I right?
Yes. And now I'm not certain exactly what games. I would certainly hope we're not playing Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption and Call of Duty and all of these, because they are too realistic. They are designed for realism, and I don't believe that video games promote that turn kids violent. I'm not one of those people, because those types of games have been around forever. However, what I do believe is that kids that are already have a deep-seated mental health challenge play these games, and it gives them a way to act out those fantasies, and then they get so enmeshed in the games that they twist reality and fantasy, and then they actually act out what they're doing in these video games. But as far as the game itself turning kids violent, I don't believe that at all, because there are kids that can sit here and play, even though I'm not a fan of it, they can play Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty and be just fine. They go out, they're fine.
We think.
And yeah, and they go out, they're productive, they don't get into fights, they don't do any of that.
We think. See, here's my concern.
No, I actually know kids that play these games, and they don't get into any kind of altercations at all.
Right.
They actually, that's like an outlet for them. They're very grounded in reality versus fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the other contingent. You have the contingent that says that already have a mental health problem or a mental health challenge. I don't want to call it a problem, it's a challenge. And they actually they get reality and fiction twisted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get the problem. And so, again, I'm not a fan of banning video games and stuff. I do have a problem with video games like that potentially being played in school. Now, if it was Wii bowling or playing golf or that kind of thing, no problem. I don't care.
Well, here's my concern. Here's my concern with video games, and first of all, in school. And again, I know I've talked to you and also others who think there's too much use of social media, too much computers, not enough
Yeah,
book work. Now, when we were in
right.
schools, we had computer class, and once a week we played maybe a half an hour of Pong, pretty much. But and I understand a recess hour. However, we have to understand, and again, I also want to comment on the games. We have to understand that when people get attached to it in school on a smaller level, they go home and they want to play on a bigger level because the other kids are doing it. Now, as far as these video games, as I said earlier, I've have worked in a video game store, and there are warnings for video games of age. And I do see
Yeah,
again, for I mean, me being a minister, I can tell you, I don't encourage violent video games at all for any
yeah,
kids.
and
For
I
any
agree.
kids.
I agree.
And there, I mean, I understand that some kids we may think are handling. The thing is when you allow yourself to absorb that, okay? Even if they're not like that, but guess what? Their younger sibling is watching them doing it. It's still an influence. Now,
Right.
what we got to understand is when these kids start playing these games and they're already dealing with anger problems, they live it out in their minds, and even the smart ones. And unfortunately, a lot of these people who are doing these heinous acts are smarter kids.
Yeah, they really generally tend to be higher IQ, and one of the
Nothing
things
ever
we
happened in their
have.
life. They've always been good kids. It's not the ones that are repeatedly. See, this is the weird part. It's not the ones that are continuously in trouble with the law locally are the ones that's doing these mass shootings. It's the ones that are quiet. They say you never thought that would happen. So my thing.
I agree that was the trend, but
Mm-hmm.
now we're starting to see that tide beginning to turn. For example, um, I just read a report, and it kind of came across in passing that the young man who did the shooting in Texas was actually known to at least one former FBI agent who is retired. The shooter at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in Florida, where I used to live. I didn't live in Broward County. I lived in Brevard County, which is a little further north. But that young man had like 20 odd, I think at least 2 dozen interactions with law enforcement, and so he was very well known. He was on
Right.
people's radar. So
Right.
again, I think the tide's beginning to turn. And people say, "Oh, it's always the quiet ones." Well, that may have been the case, but that tide is beginning to turn somewhat, where these kids are sort of giving out warnings that they're getting ready to do something, and I
And
think
that's the
some people
biggest
are
thing.
becoming woefully ignorant of them.
Well, that's what the concern is right now, and we have to really tie this up here. And I appreciate your
Right.
timing, but in this world right now, we're so caught up in hate that there's not enough. I'm not gonna say even programs, because you can have all the programs in the world. If you don't have any concern, those programs are not gonna work. There's not enough
Right.
concern for those that are dealing with these mental handicaps, and when I say mental handicaps, I'm talking about these illnesses that are not ones that they have like some prescription for, or sometimes they over medicate them. Now, the thing is
And,
what,
and what we have to understand is medication cannot be used. It is not suggested to be used in kids younger than 18. So,
that's a
because
good
it
point.
actually has the reverse effect that it has on 18 and above, and that we have to understand that the human brain is not considered fully developed until a person is 25 or so, around that age. So again, we have to understand this brain science that is constantly evolving, constantly developing, that we're learning more and more. And so we have to understand that. But another point I want to make very quickly is we can have as many security aspects in our public and private schools as possible, but we don't have these same kind of things in our colleges. And the thing that should bring this really, really home to us is my husband went to Virginia Tech in the early to mid 90s. And that Virginia Tech was the home of the biggest college mass
right,
shooting
right,
back in 2007.
mm-hmm.
And so that really hit home for my husband, because that shooting began in his residence hall where he used to live I think he was a freshman. And so that really hit home for him. So there's no lockdowns, there's no gates, there's no locked doors in a college. Anyone can walk onto a college campus and do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to have, especially, we have to start teaching young people situational awareness.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
being aware of your surroundings, and really getting back, and I cringe saying this, getting back to that 9/11 mentality of see something, say something.
I agree.
If something doesn't look right or feel right, say something.
I agree. And
I love to say, this is when I say that, because I'm not trying to draw a comparison.
no, I understand what you're saying. I understand exactly what you're
During
saying.
9/11,
We got to be alert.
Say something. Be alert. Have situational awareness at all times. If it doesn't look right, it doesn't speak right, say something. The worst that's going to happen is you were wrong. But the best thing that happened is it was something, and you stopped something in its tracks.
All right, and thank you. And again, I'm sorry to cut you off. We really got to tie
No
this up.
problem.
And
I know you only have a little time.
no, you're okay. I appreciate the info, and I do agree with you. Good news is here in Wycomico, our public schools are, as far as you got to get buzzed in. However, as she said, with the colleges, it's not that way. So, again, going forward, you working with the wanting to work with District 2 board of education. Just within less than a minute, can you tell me what you see needs to be addressed?
We need to increase school resource officers. There are volunteer programs in place that put people into schools. We can also, there are programs in place that we can actually link real-time video to our sheriff's department to make sure our schools stay extra safe.
Okay, this sounds great. And this has been Bridging the Gap, everyone. Thank you, Kim, for sitting in with us and everything. And your information is definitely great information. And I think that these school shootings and things like that would definitely decrease if we address mental illness, if we watch what our kids are a part of and playing on the video games, and even, again, what we were talking about earlier in the classrooms. We need to get back to traditional learning where we're back to books, things like that we can, you know. And thank you again, and thank you all for listening in. And this has been another Bridging the Gap. We'll be seeing you soon. Have a great one.